This is part 3 of my design video series. I'm going to talk about art and style today. I wouldn't normally have done that, actually, but I was on Twitter and I was fortunate enough to be able to ask some of the people at a hashtag RPG chat. I was able to ask people what they would want out of videos like this, what they would want to know about a game before deciding whether to support it in a Kickstarter campaign. And one of the things that came up was art. The art process for Feed was perhaps a little bit unusual. Because it's a game that's so open, it's so open to players, each group creating their own thing, I needed the art to be pretty flexible. But at the same time, I didn't want it to be just a total grab bag. So I kind of had a vague visual style that I wanted to look for. Also, my budget was quite low because my plan is to give away Feed, not to sell it. And so I'm not anticipating great profits, but at the same time, my overhead is much higher than just producing a little, 20-page PDF or whatever. So what I did is I turned to licensing, and I was fortunate enough to find some people who did great work on that. I licensed the cover art for Feed, which I think looks great. This particular image is one that I really like, and I knew that I wanted it for Feed when I saw it. And I love the moment of reflection that's portrayed here. I like that this is a quiet moment because it really shows what Feed is good at. Feed definitely will help you through the scene where you're, running after somebody, tackling them, pinning them down, drinking their blood. Feed can do all of that, but so can a lot of games. It's the moment after, the moment you've done something wrong or something that you regret or something that changes the way you look at yourself. It's a powerful, dramatic moment. Most game systems have nothing to say in that moment, and Feed does. Feed has spiritual traits. Feed has hunger and degeneration rules. Something much more complex than the old White Wolf humanity role. This is a storytelling moment in Feed. The rules support it. And so this moment on the cover is kind of like, if you want to play this moment, if you want moments like this in your game, then you should be playing Feed. Devoured is a very different kind of image where we're looking at a part, right? We're missing the eyes, the crop on this and the frame on it, which kind of has a little bit of a distancing effect. I really like the fact that we're on the outside looking in. That's part of what's fascinating about vampirism too. People always talk about the charisma of Dracula or the way that we're able to kind of get inside and sympathize with, Lestat or whoever. However, there's also that aspect of mystery, that aspect of opacity. I feel like this picture has that. It's like, I look at this and I think, who is this woman? What has she just done? I can't see how she's looking at me. There's an interesting gaze effect going on in this image because I'm looking at her, and this is not a heavily sexualized image, but at the same time, you've got the little bit of cleavage there, you've got the red lips and all that stuff, and there's kind of a window effect with the frame. So there's a little bit of a gaze thing happening there, but then you kind of get sucked into it, and then it's like, well, wait, where are her eyes? And that's very indicative of the way that you experience a vampire in fiction. It's like, this is a monster. This is a person that if I met them in real life, they would kill me. They would consume me. And I don't know what's going on in their mind. So the woman in this image is dangerous, clearly. And then at the same time, though, there is that little bit of vulnerability. Then there is the neck there and the breastbone and all that. So it's a very complex and engaging image. I liked it a lot. I was also able to license some art for Los Satanicos. Yeah, I didn't expect to be able to actually find really quality vampire luchador art that I could just license. But I go on DeviantArt, and lo and behold, there it is. This art is terrific, and it adds so much to the book. It's all flavor with Los Satanicos. It's all have fun with Feed, play two twin sisters who rise from the dead and decide that they want to be luchadoras, along with their little person mentor, Pepe. That concept basically carries the strain, and art is important to that. I wanted something that players would immediately look at and be like, oh, I see what kind of game I'm supposed to play here. I love the luchador rising up out of the grave. That is a really cool image. This image is maybe one of the most sexualized that I used in the book, probably the most. And that doesn't bother me much in this context because it really is sort of an exploitation sort of story. It's meant to be played tongue-in-cheek, and part of that whole camp vampire movie thing is a little bit of cheesecake. I've tried to be very conscientious about not filling the book full of sexy vampire ladies, but here I felt like it was just right. It has just the right tone for what I wanted. I've got a little bit of commissioned art too. I have this piece with the pop culture vampires in the section on how to tell pop culture stories that I felt did a really good job of conveying the old versus new, the idea of playing a vampire who is Definitely modern, definitely from our world and like recognizable as a person you would actually see walking down the street, more so than a person you would see on like a cheap TV show. But at the same time, in a world that is shared with all of vampire legends. So I think having that kind of shadowy Dracula-like figure in the back, and our heroine in the foreground with the stake already, a little tattoo on the neck, I think it works really well. A lot of the other art that you'll find in the book is some pretty quality stock art. I've got a few on screen now. I was hesitant to use any stock art, but when I looked at the quality of work that was actually available, I found that many of these were really good fits. And I felt like it was really no use reinventing the wheel. I mean, if you look at this image from the Nod strain, this is precisely what I wanted for Nod, this vampire with the glowing eyes, dressed as a soldier, that kind of bringing together the supernatural with the very human experience of war. And so I look at a picture like that and it's like, well, I can be, I can be snooty and say no stock art for my book. But honestly, that's the picture I want. Why would I want to go and pay somebody to try to emulate it when I can have it? So I think that the stock art that's in the book was used to pretty good effect. More so, honestly, than the art, which, a lot of the licensed art is great. But more pervasive is the style of the book. If you look at this picture of the page, just a random page in the book, I feel like the color scheme, the way that the sidebars are set off, all that stuff really works well. The headings, all that stuff really came together. My layout artist was terrific and produced great work for an order that was basically, I really want this book to have a lot of flavor and I really want it to stand out and kind of have its own voice. But I don't want it specifically to call to mind any particular style or genre or method of play or idea. And I have no idea as a layout artist how you meet that order, but he did. I'm thrilled with the final product in terms of the layout and the graphic design. I think it really works. There is that appeal of color and design that gets people into a game in a way that no elevator pitch can. And I think Feed really delivers on that, especially in the print version. The PDF is free, and that's important to me. The PDF is going to be going out to everyone as soon as the campaign funds. But if you can afford the print version of the book, you should get it. I'm not saying that out of self-interest. The price is set so low that my royalty is honestly in the single digit cents. It's as low as I can set it. But I love the print version. This is the print version of Feed. I've been showing it to everyone as though it were baby pictures over the past few days. This is the first proof, the proofs that I'm actually going over right now as we record. I love to have the print copy of books. If you've got this book in hand and you've got other people at the table and you're like, I want to play Feed next Thursday, you hand this to them and they skim through it. And then based on the art, they don't have time to read it in depth, but based on the art and based on the design, they say, yeah, I can get into this. Vampire game sounds good. The character sheet was the first and the last thing done. The character sheet, I still have this old piece of binder paper with the basic character sheet sketched on it. It was one of the first inspirations from the game was, rather than having just a morality score or basically humanity points that you gain or lose, what if we made that more concrete by having as big, basically boxes full of all the things that make you you, and then you cross them out and replace them in red with vampire traits when you become more monstrous. It's much more organic and much more compelling. So the character sheet was in place right from the beginning. It was there through all the play tests. So fast forward to the end of the design process, my layout guy has been continually sending me these pages that were great, and getting, wonderful, useful advice like, yes, I like it, which was all I could ever say because I had no brain for that kind of stuff at all. But I loved what he was giving me. So everything was smooth sailing until the very end, and he sends me the character sheet, and I'm like, no, because I've been living with this character sheet forever, and it's part of the concept of the game, which of course I never articulated to him before he went to the trouble of designing it. So we had to have this whole back and forth where I was kind of stammeringly trying to explain thematically what I want out of the character sheet and how it's supposed to work with the rules and all that stuff, which of course is not his job to know. Compared to everything else, it took us a long time to get the character sheet right, and it was actually the last little bit of Feed that was properly laid out and ready to print. So yeah, the character sheet was the first and the last thing done. I am so happy with the way that it worked out. I think that it was worth the time that we spent on it. We really nailed it. I love the open space in this character sheet, and you don't really get the full effect of it looking at it the way you are right now. Because in all these big empty spaces during character creation, you're filling these in with traits. So they're not going to be empty. It's not going to be a character sheet full of empty space. It's going to be a character sheet that is dominated by your own handwriting, which really represents the way the system works. it's mostly your contribution. It's mostly your creative work that goes into Feed, and it just gives you the structure to play it as a game. So that's the art in Feed. Personally, I think it's a great looking book. I've been greatly enjoying going through this proof and kind of seeing all the nice layout and art on the writing that I've been doing. So yeah, in terms of art, in terms of style, that's how it's going to look. I think your players are going to dig it.